Hello. Ooh. Hello, beautiful souls. Hello, 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 hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. How is everyone feeling? Pardon my cat for meowing nonstop and this microphone from acting crazy. Zen. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today. Today we are doing a workshop. What is going on with this mic? This is some real shadow work right here, this microphone. Anyways, hi everyone. So thank you everyone for joining. Today we are going to be diving deep into our shadow work. Give me 1 minute. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Because this doesn't seem to be working. Give me 1 minute, guys. Okay, there you go. Can you guys hear me now? Put it in the chat if you can hear me, if you can see me. Hello, beautiful souls. So thank you for today. Thank you for coming. Thank you for just being your beautiful light, for just shining your light into this world. And most importantly, thank you for being your darkness. So today we are going to be talking about our darkness. We're going to be talking about embracing our shadow, embracing our darkness. And if you are new to my group for some reason and you have no idea who I am Generous Janetti. I am a spiritual and meditation and love coach. I help and empower conscious women to achieve healing, confidence, and love in 90 days with my I Am Sovereign Creator method without fear, rejection, or further heartbreak. So today we are going to be diving deep into our shadow because we can't heal, we can't overcome anything in our lives until we really see who we are, until we really know who we are, what we are, why we are, why we are acting the way that we are acting. So I want to just start by just close down your eyes for just a minute. And let's just settle into this space, just really grounding our energy, grounding our mind, grounding our spirit. And just take a deep breath in through your nose. And take a deep breath out through your mouth. Coming back to the breath. Breathing in and breathing out. And just notice for a moment with your eyes closed. If you haven't closed down your eyes, just close down your eyes for just a moment. And just notice how with your eyes closed, there is a sparkle of light outside your eyelids. But you are in the darkness. Notice how you are in the darkness with your eyes closed. And notice how as your eyes are closed and as you're resting in the darkness, there is no fear. There is no anger. You're just simply being. You're simply observing the darkness, whether consciously or unconsciously. And take a deep breath into this darkness behind your eyelids. And breathe out. And just notice for a moment how our eyes being closed, us being in the darkness, is helping us to live a healthier life. Notice all of the things that are done with our eyes closed. Notice how we sleep with our eyes closed, which allows us to rest, rejuvenate, heal our body, dream the most wildest and most beautiful dreams, skating into different dimensions. Notice how very often we kiss with our eyes closed. and how we can experience such pleasure with kisses, with love making, with our eyes closed. Notice how we blink and how our eyelids are protecting our vision, our observation. And breathe into this and breathe out. And notice that just like our eyes being closed and us being in the darkness of our eyelids, being in the darkness of the world, embracing our darkness, doesn't have to be scary, but it can be beneficial. It can be beautiful. It can be great for our health and our healing. How facing our darkness heals us. Notice how all of the stars in the sky just brighten in the darkness. And how amazed we are by the starry sky. Because we love the darkness. So just sit here for a moment and just allow that to be. And just breathe into your darkness. And breathe out. And then just resting in the awareness. Breathing in. And breathing out. And then just opening up your eyes whenever you're ready. Coming back into the light. And I'll be right back. I'm going to put my cat in the bedroom so he doesn't meow. He's black and white. He embraces both his darkness and his light. You know, before I put Zen in the bedroom, let's talk about Zen for a minute. Zen is black and Zen is white. And he doesn't suppress the darkness. He doesn't suppress the blackness of him. He doesn't wish that he was only white. He teaches the yin and the yang. And he honors both parts of ourselves. So I want to use Zen for an analogy. I didn't plan on it. But use Zen as an analogy of us embracing our light and our dark. And allowing ourselves to wear both our light and our dark, our white and our black, on us for the world to see. So think about that, and I'll be right back. Look how cute he is. My darkness may be that I kiss him too much. Alright, so we're back. So if you're tuning in right now, please just put in the chat live. And if you're watching the replay later, put replay. So I want to just start with two quotes that I found. And I love these. The first one is, choosing to face our demons, our historical hurts, and our crushed aspirations can provide a new leash of life. Can provide a new lease of life. The second one is, how can I be substantial if I do not cast a shadow? I must have a dark side if I am able to be whole. And that's by Carl Jung. I want to read that second one again because I love this. How can I be substantial if I do not cast a shadow? I must have a dark side if I am to be whole. Hi, Jen. Hi, Robin. I just said hi, Jenna. Hi, Robin. Thanks for coming. So, shadow work. Shadow work is such a vital part of our existence, and we don't do enough of it. So, shadow work can take various forms. It can be writing, it can be meditating, it can be, just going deep into our process of increasing our awareness, our triggers, our shame, our desires. Shadow work is choosing to really just face those demons, those things that are so underneath us, so unconscious. So if you don't know what shadow work is, let me know in the comment if you have no idea what shadow work is or dark work is, and you're like, what is this crazy thing? But shadow work is yin energy. We have yin, we have yang. Okay, yin is the darkness, yang is the light. And so it's time that we embrace our yin. It's time that we embrace and we learn to dance and love in our darkness. Like the meditation we started with. The most pleasurable moments in our lives we do in the dark. We sleep in the dark. Often we make love in the dark. Well, thanks for being here, Robin. So we're going to talk about that. So we want to start to embrace it. So society, our collective consciousness, religious beliefs has taught us to run from our darkness and only to focus on the light. For example, the Bible states that if your eye causes you to sin, cut it out, right? But what is sin? And so, we're taught this thing about good and evil and light and dark, God and devil, and that it's the enemy and that they should never collide with each other. But that's one of the biggest misunderstandings that we've been told. For the truth is, good cannot exist without evil, and light cannot exist without dark. God cannot exist without the devil. Whatever your beliefs are, it's intertwined. It's intertwined. And so an example of this is the dark night sky, where the stars exist shining inside the darkness. My belief system is, and if you believe in God or the devil, whatever your belief system is, take what resonates, throw away what doesn't. But this idea of God and devil have never been enemies in my perspective, but they've been beautiful lovers dancing with each other in creation. So I'm going to ask you to just think about that for a minute. Maybe you think that's wild, but just imagine. Just imagine for a moment if this idea of God and the devil were never actually enemies, but that instead they were beautiful lovers, dancing with each other in creation, both just being magic together. Just imagine that. This is creation. We cannot create without the light and the darkness within us. And your body is the dark night sky, and your soul is the star inside the sky. Your soul is all of us. So there is no separation, okay? So I just want to start off by reminding us not to shame the darkness, but to start to integrate it, letting go of the suppression. So what is shadow? What is the shadow? So the shadow is the parts of us that don't get resolved. It's often thought of as like the child, the inner self. And this is the part of us that never got resolved, that got hurt, and we never worked through it. And so a lot of times this happens as a child. And the shadow self is often the inner child with unmet needs that gets pushed down and suppressed. So when we don't deal with the pain, the trauma, the fear, the regret, we end up suppressing it and we end up pushing it down. So you can think about the shadow self in one or two ways. You can either think about it as like the inner child. You can think about it as like the former self, right? We're always changing. We're always evolving. So the former self. And whenever we are not consciously aware of an action that we are doing, it exists in the subconscious realm. And so an example of this is like a trash can. So you can push more and more stuff down in a trash can. You can push, all of the garbage down. But the garbage doesn't go away. It just gets pushed down. So a lot of times when we experience trauma and pain, this is what happens, is that we're literally just shoving new things on top of it and we're pushing down the garbage. But the garbage doesn't go away. The pain doesn't go away. The trauma doesn't go away. It still exists. but now it's covered in new food. Now it's covered in new garbage, right? And so we forget about the banana that's at the bottom of the garbage can. And so looking at stuff, we shove things down deep, and we don't always realize we have it, yet it's still affecting us. So it's the unmet need. It's the unmet need that we have, the unmet desire, the unmet intention that we have, that then becomes the shadow. Let me know if you're still with me. Let me know if this makes sense. I'll pause for a minute. So the shadow aspect is this unmet part of you, this part of you that wants something that it didn't have. And our shadow is not a bad thing. Every part of our shadow has an intention, it has a desire, it has a want, it has a positive intent. So, for example, if you have a shadow of abandonment, its positive intent is not to be abandoned. If your shadow is love, then your positive intent is that you just want to be loved. And so, for example, my shadow, I'll be honest with you guys, is wanting to be loved. And realizing that I will do anything to be loved. I'm a love coach. You guys are all on this page. You're all watching this live because I have a deep pain, a deep, deep, deep pain of love. And I don't want the world to feel the pain that I feel over love. And I want to help to heal people from the pain that I've felt by teaching the strategies and the tools that I've learned to overcome it. And that aspect of abandonment and rejection, it still comes up. But I know what to do with it when it comes up now. Because I recognize that my shadow in the past, when it was unconscious, is that I would do anything. I would do anything to be loved. As a teenager, I fell into some serious promiscuous behavior. I'll be honest, because I, as a little teenage girl, thought that if I gave boys what they wanted, they would love me. We can all laugh at that because that's not true. But that was my shadow. So my promiscuous behavior was my shadow, and its intention was just to be loved. So behind any negative action is actually positive intent. So the job of the shadow work, the job of doing shadow work, is to look at that shadow, notice, and look at that shadow, and then notice the positive intent. So we're going to look at this in 5 different steps, okay? So the first step is look at the shadow. Look at what it is. So for my example, when I was a little girl, my shadow was I was promiscuous, okay? So that was my shadow. I then noticed the positive intent. The positive intent was that person, that teenage girl, wanted to be loved. It was love. And then the third step is reframing it to yourself as an adult. So you can also think about reframing, seeing in a different perspective, right? So now I'm a grown-up. I'm no longer a 16-year-old girl. I no longer have promiscuous behavior, but I can see why that teenage part of me did what I did. I can now understand it from my own, level of intellect that I couldn't see when I was a child, when I was a teenager. Step 5, they intermesh, is heal and acknowledge it. To really heal this shadow, heal it. And to acknowledge that you have a shadow. I posted last night on this page. I posted, you might have looked at that and said, wow, that's really dark. That's a really big shadow. I posted this long post about sexual frustration. And it doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, it does feel like the devil trying to bring me down. It feels like I'm in hell. And because I recognize that there is the shadow part of me that exists for when I was a teenage girl of having promiscuous behavior. That's the shadow. I now know the tools to acknowledge it, to heal it, so that I don't continue to act in unconscious ways. So if you read my post yesterday, I talked about how I was sexually frustrated, how I wanted to go outside of myself for, pleasure. And instead, I thought about it and I'm like, what do I really need right now? Like, why am I actually frustrated? And I brought it back to self-love, of me really just needing love and recognizing that there's no one outside me to love me. There's no one outside of any of us to love us. We can only love ourselves. And let me know if that resonates with you or not, or how you feel by me saying there's no one outside to love you. I notice how that feels. And so I noticed this yesterday. And so I decided, I used the tool of coming back into self-love practice to, overpower the shadow aspect of me. So I healed it and I acknowledged it. And so, everyone has a shadow. Absolutely everyone has a shadow. And I believe, and this is a whole nother life we could go into, but I believe as females, we have a feminine shadow as a collective. And often us women use our feminine shadow, or anyone does this, and we utilize our feminine shadow, we use the feminine shadow and we utilize it by maybe manipulating or shaming, blaming, emasculating, controlling men. And inside all of us, like I said before, we have an ultimate goal, an ultimate desire, an ultimate intention. And you can think about this is when you think of something that has been present from the moment you came out of the womb. What is that one thing that you are willing to fight for? That doesn't matter what it costs. You're willing to fight for any single day. That's the shadow. The shadow is the unspoken desire that you have shame and guilt expressing. So think about that. I just want to pause for a minute and just reflect. What is the one thing that you are constantly fighting for? That you are willing to kill, to steal, to lie for? That you have so much shame and guilt that you don't express to the world? Just think about that. It's the shadow of what you're fighting for. It's the shadow that you're willing to shame, to blame, to make wrong. That's the shadow. So what is it? Ask yourself, what is it that you stand for? What is your greatest desire that has never changed? What are you willing to kill for? And let me know in the chat if you want to. What are you willing to kill for? I know, we're getting real dark in here. So the shadow is that aspect that manipulates, it shames, it blames. It has jealousy, it has anger, it has rage. It's the aspect that is unconscious and not spoken of. So, and what happens is when you're not conscious or you don't speak on it, it becomes the shadow. It becomes toxic when it's not vocalized. And so another example of this, as I stated to you guys, that I have a shadow of love. And my love is both my light and it's my darkness. It's my greatest light. You guys are on this group because I love you so much, right? But it's also my darkness. Because when I don't feel loved, that cheetah comes out in me. When I don't feel loved, the promiscuous behavior would come out, right? So my shadow is love. And I have a great desire for love, to be loved, to give love. It's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's why I'm teaching what I'm teaching. It's why, in the past, I always, again, my shadow, I always put relationships, I always put men before friends, before money, before success, before health. I thought love was everything, and I was willing to let go of money, let go of my friends, let go of health, just to be loved by a man. That was my shadow. And my shadow, the shadow part of it, is that I have this deep down desire to be loved and would do anything to be loved. And in the past, I would do anything to try to make someone love me. As the example I gave of my 16-year-old self. I was willing to have promiscuous behavior because I thought the men would love me for it. It's not true. And when I'm not feeling loved, when I didn't feel loved, I'd break down. So the truth is, love is what I stand for. And it's the reason behind my relationships, my coaching, my job, everything. And so when that desire is not brought to the conscious and remains in the subconscious, the shadow emerges. The manipulation, the blame, the shame occurs. So, one of these shadow aspects of this love that I keep talking about is I always wanted marriage. And marriage might sound like this light and airy and no problem, no shadow there. But my reason for getting married was dark, right? Because I had this dark belief system that if you put a ring on my finger, if you marry me, then you can't leave. I have security, I have stability, right? You can't leave no matter how I act, no matter how I behave. You're here, you're married to me, it's legal. It's my darkness, willing to manipulate, right? And so I spent, up until the age of 24, I'm 29 now, and I've worked through this, I've done the work to overcome this, but up until the age of 24, every single relationship that I ever was in, we broke up because they wouldn't marry me. Because what I really wanted wasn't marriage. I wanted love. And my representation of love was marriage. That was my shadow. So your shadow is this unmet part of you, this unmet desire, this unseen aspect. That's so unconscious that you're not willing, that you're willing, you have shame and you have guilt for. So that's the shadow. So I want you to put in the chat, whether you're watching live or the replay, I fearlessly embrace my shadow. I fearlessly embrace my shadow. I fearlessly embrace my shadow. So when we embrace our shadow, it's no longer stuck in the subconscious. So we can no longer blame, we can no longer manipulate or hurt people over it because people are aware of it. We're aware of it. So we know how to move with it. So I want to do a journaling exercise with you guys. And then I want to lead you guys through like a little meditation coaching thing on tools to embrace your shadow. Okay? So this is all great. We know what the shadow is. This is the unconscious, unmet part of ourselves that is standing for something great that has been pushed down for so long and manifests in dark ways. So we know that now. So now what do we do about it? How do we fix it? How do we change it? How do we change the jealousy? How do we change the blame? How do we change the manipulative behavior? First, having gentle kindness over it. Don't judge it. Just notice it, reassure it, and love it. So, a couple of journaling activities, and then I want to do a different tools. So, first off, ask yourself, and if you're taking notes, ask yourself, what is your greatest desire? What are you willing to kill for? And not only what are you willing, what is your greatest desire? What is the one desire that has never gone away, no matter how much you've tried to push it away? What is it? And just answer that question. And I recommend you guys start a shadow journal. A shadow journal where you start to write down as you see your shadow come up. Becoming conscious of the thoughts that you think that, if you're walking a grocery store and you see someone and you have a negative thought that says, oh, that's an ugly skirt. That's a shadow. And you write that down. Noticed a woman in a grocery store with an ugly skirt. Right? And then later you can reflect on it and be like, why did that come out? And maybe that came out because you were jealous because she had a great body. Right? And so once you notice the shadow, then you can start to acknowledge it and work through it and heal it. Okay? So what's your greatest shadow? 2, which emotion makes me feel the most uneasy or uncomfortable to sit with? Which one do I try to avoid the most? So mine is anger. So answer that. Which emotion makes you feel the most uneasy or uncomfortable to sit with? Which one do I try to avoid the most? Maybe it's anger, maybe it's sadness, maybe it's guilt, maybe it's jealousy. What is it? Which emotion makes me feel the most uneasy and uncomfortable to sit with? And I'll put these in the chat. Next, I want you to think about back to a scenario or situation where that emotion that you just named played out. What happened? And ask yourself, how did I react initially? What other emotions played out alongside the one I tried to avoid? So I'm putting these all in the chat. So again, think back to a scenario or situation where that emotion played out. What happened? How did you react initially? What other emotions played out alongside it that you tried to avoid? And you will have this all in the chat. I have a coaching session in 28 minutes, so I'm going a little bit fast, guys. Okay, so, and you can come back to this later. Think back to that scenario, what emotion played out. Okay, so next question. What negative emotion am I most comfortable with? Do I cling to certain emotions on a day-to-day basis because they feel normal? So what emotion am I most comfortable with? So mine is sadness. I have no problem crying. I cry every time I go to yoga. I have no problem crying. So what emotion are you comfortable with? So these are just a beginning of different things, that questions you can ask yourself to start to embrace your shadow and let things start to unwind. So this takes you deep into your subconscious to then move through and start to move the energy through. And so I found a couple, and I'll put these in the chat too. I found a bunch of questions that you can journal with to start to embrace your shadow. These are not mine. I found them on the internet, but they were really fantastic. I took these 3 questions from the last one. So now I want to do a little exercise, and this is going to be a little hard to do because I'm on a live and I'm not doing an actual coaching face-to-face with you. But I want you to just close your eyes just for a moment. And this is something you can constantly do yourself. So just close down your eyes again. And I want you to think about something you want to work with. Think about a shadow aspect you want to work with. Maybe it's a feeling of unworthiness. Maybe it's a feeling of a relationship. So think about maybe even a traumatic moment. And, very often the shadow comes from a traumatic moment where an unmet need wasn't happening. And so we want to go back and we want to revisit this. And we're going to do this in 5 steps. So close your eyes. Think about a feeling that you want to work with. Maybe it's a traumatic moment. Maybe it's an emotion. Maybe it's unworthiness. Maybe it's anger. And just think about that. And I want you to think about that former version of you. And I want you to invite a conversation in. And this is where it gets a little metaphysical, but it's so beautiful, it's so worthwhile. I want you to invite this former version of you in. Maybe it's your inner child. Maybe you're 5 years old. Maybe it's your 16-year-old self. And just picture this version of yourself that exists in the past. And invite them in to have a conversation. Maybe it's a need for validation. What is it? And just think about this former version of you. And once you have this picture of this version of you, I want you to start to talk with it. And picture yourself now talking to this former version of yourself. And ask it, what do you need from me? What do you need from me? And remember that the shadow self is often the inner child of unmet needs. It didn't get its needs met. So you're now going back to that version of you, that former self, that inner child. And you're asking that version of yourself, what do you need? What do you need from me? And I'm going to just give you a minute to just talk with it. Just ask it, what do you need? And allow whatever feelings that are coming up to be there. Maybe you're crying, maybe you're angry, maybe you're frustrated. Just allow that. And ask that version of yourself, what do you need from me? And I'm going to do this with you. And notice that it will always sound like a guru, or it will sound like a higher being. So what is this aspect of you need? So I'm thinking about an event this morning that happened. And what I needed, what the past version of me said they needed, was they needed to be seen. They needed to be heard. This aspect of me that I'm working off in my shadow, it wanted to be known. Like it just wanted to be known. This aspect of me, this little girl, this 29-year-old, this shadow moment that happened a couple weeks ago that I reflected back on. It was acting out because it felt unloved again. And the way that it wanted to feel loved was it wanted to be known. It wanted the world to know about her. She felt like she was hiding. So just start to ask this child, what do they need? And really just listen and acknowledge this past version of yourself, this inner child. Start to listen to it like you weren't listened to. And I want you to really just picture it, integrate it, and recognize this as a past timeline. That nothing is happening really in the past. It all happens in this moment. So as you go back to this illusion of the past, you start to heal it in this present moment as this now version of you. So imagine yourself in this present state, talking to that past event, that past moment that you want to resolve. And give yourself that support and love that you needed. Give it all of the resources that you now know. And whenever you're ready, I'm going to invite you to just come back, take a deep breath in, and take a deep breath out. I know that you can do this at any time. So whenever you notice a shadow aspect come up, start to dialogue with it. Start to go back to the very first moment you felt that. And give that past version of yourself something that it needed. So one more thing I'm going to share with you guys is I had this shadow moment come up a couple weeks ago. I had been dating this guy, and at first, this is my shadow. I'm being vulnerable, I'm open, I'm being honest. I was dating this guy for a while, and he was very adamant about being interested in me, and I fought it for a long time, and finally I agreed to be in a relationship, or I decided to explore this relationship. And then I noticed that at first I said to him, I don't want anyone knowing about me. Don't tell anyone about me. I don't want anyone knowing. And I said that because I wasn't sure about him yet. I didn't know about him yet. I didn't know if I liked him. And so then I started to develop feelings for him. And the shadow aspect of me came out that wanted to be known to the Lord. And so I tried to vocalize to him that I wanted people to know about me. I wanted, we both go to yoga. I wanted the yoga people to know about me. And he didn't want people to know about me. And so there was this little girl inside me that felt unloved. She felt abandoned. She felt used. She felt like I didn't want to be seen or talked about. And so the shadow that ended up emerging was I ended up telling a mutual friend of ours that we were intimate. I ended up telling this friend, and that was the shadow. The shadow had this unmet need of wanting to be known, wanting to be loved, wanting to be heard about. And she wasn't getting that met. So she decided to take control and try to meet her own need by telling a friend that was also friends with, this partner that I was dating about us. That was my shadow. And I went back and forth about this of was it shadow? Was it good? Why she's my friend? Why is that a bad thing? But I noticed it was a shadow aspect because I couldn't wait to tell him that I told this friend, knowing that he was going to be upset. And I know that sounds dark, right? But we're talking about shadow. So I have shadow. Guys, surprising. I have a shadow too. And so I couldn't wait to tell him, hey, I told our friend. And so I did. And I'm sure you guys can imagine how that played out. It didn't play out well. He wasn't happy that I told this friend, which then made me hurt more and made more pain come up. But I had to do the shadow work of asking myself, well, why did she really need to know? Why did I actually have to have people know about me? And my intent was I just wanted to be loved. I wanted the world to know about us. I didn't want to feel shame. So that was my shadow. So start to play with your shadow. Start to answer these journal questions that I gave you guys. Start to go back and talk to these shadow versions of yourself. And see what happens. And recognize that, again, our shadow is not bad. Our shadow is just the part of us that has unmet needs. It has an intention. It wants something. And when you give the shadow what it wants, when you listen to it, the shadow goes away. When you bring light to the shadow goes away. Just like physical life. When you switch the light on, the shadow goes away. So bring light to the shadow, and then it won't be there. But remember that the darkness is not bad. The darkness is what allows the stars to shine. The darkness is what allows us to close our eyes and go to sleep every night. The darkness, we close our eyes when we kiss, when we have the most sensual moments. The darkness is not anything to feel. It's something to integrate. So when we face our darkness, we become conscious of it. And then we can just acknowledge that as a part of us. I acknowledge that there was a girl in me that wants so badly to be loved, to be wanted, to be adored, that I will do anything to be loved. And the way that I turn the light on it is by being a love coach, by shining light to empower all of you guys, to help you, to coach you guys to greatness, to coach you to overcoming this. I'm not leaving it in the dark. Instead, I'm bringing light to it. And recognize that every shadow has light and every light has dark. You're beautiful. You're wanted. You're loved. And you're adored. So I hope that you enjoyed this shadow work today. And I want to remind you, we have 6 days left for $5 coaching. My normal price is $250 a session. It's $5 for the month of May. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I want to make sure everyone gets the love that they need. I have 2 spots available for one-on-one coaching. That $5 will get applied to your coaching membership. And again, I empower conscious spiritual women to achieve healing from heartbreak, tap into confidence and love in 90 days with my I Am Spiritually Sovereign empowerment method without further heartbreak. So if you're interested in working with me, reach out to me for a one-on-one. And then lastly, I have group coaching and launching in a month. There's 9 spots available. It's a lot less than my one-on-one coaching. There's 9 spots. The group coaching is, us getting together, us loving each other, me empowering you in different things like this, of coming deeper into self-love, healing your heartbreak, healing your pain, being the best version of yourself. And again, that's a 3-month program, 12 weeks. So I will leave all of the information for that in here as well. And you can contact me. So I hope that everyone has a powerful day. I love you. I appreciate you for all, not just your light, but also your darkness. So just keep being the best that you can be. So there's my group coaching. And you can sign up right online if you're interested in that. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I hope everyone has a grand day, and I will see you later. Bye, guys. Just gonna put the link in.